The following video contains spoilers for War for Cybertron Earthrise. Peter Cullen, the man who's voiced Optimus Prime for over 35 years, has now been replaced with a 20-something Vine star. So let's talk about that, I guess. You know those videos where an AI reads every script from a franchise and then creates a new one, but everything is just strangely unnatural and it doesn't seem like something a human would create?
Magic. It was something that Harry Potter thought was very good.
Michael is not overly smart, but he is overly Michael. It's very Scranton.
That's what War for Cybertron Siege felt like to me when it first aired. It was every other Transformer script fed through a blender with the brightness decreased in post. Super brief Siege review! I really only had 4 takeaways from Siege. 1. This is the greatest GIF of the Transformers brand. 2. Why does Jetfire have blue eyes as a Decepticon? 3. This is the farthest detached B has ever been from his G1 incarnation, and this is Bumblebee in appearance only. 4. I had my impulse buy Impactor toy T-posing on my shelf for like a year before Siege came out, and in the show, he died while T-posing, which led to me laughing very hard, despite that being the least appropriate reaction. However, War for Cybertron's second season, Earthrise, was actually good? Super brief Earthrise review. We'll talk about the actual video topic eventually. Maybe it's because I entered it with rock bottom expectations, but there were some genuinely incredible ideas on display here, and their execution wasn't too shabby either. We see a Quintesson forcibly sawing off his other faces. Megatron literally has to murder his own Decepticons to power the Nemesis and return life to Cybertron. At one point, the Autobots find a ship stuck halfway through a space bridge and have to surgically detonate the ship without destroying the bridge for passage. There's an entire episode set in the Dead Universe from IDW Comics. Ravage sniffs Starscream like a dog, and it's adorable. Really great stuff. If this were a fan project, this would be rejoiced by the entire fandom as the greatest thing on the internet. However, an official Hasbro production definitely leaves more to be desired. Believe me, it wasn't all perfect. Starscream betrays Megatron just because that's something Starscream has to do. It felt more like checking boxes off a list than an inspired story choice. And while the IDW-inspired art direction, backgrounds, and lighting are beautiful, the clunky character models and stiff animation hold it back. At least move Skylynx's legs a little bit. What I truly felt inspired to talk about was the show's shortcomings in the area of voice acting and voice direction. And all of those issues are epitomized in one character.
Ironhide! Recall Ratchet's team and keep everyone on the Ark until we secure the station!
It's the actual video topic now, over 3 minutes in. The War for Cybertron trilogy raises a question. What is the line between acting and doing an impression? Where does one start and the other ends? And how will the Optimus Prime character have a future beyond Peter Cullen? You see, at some point prior to 2018, Hasbro opted to move away from union voice actors. They recast every rescue bot, Cyberverse was composed of entirely new faces, and franchise regulars haven't been allowed in the booth for years, such as Corey Burton, Frank Welker, and Jeff Bennett. Peter Cullen, the man who truly created Optimus Prime, has only been invited to record dialogue for a single day over the last several years, dubbing over already recorded temp dialogue for the Bumblebee movie.
The Bumblebee movie, they hired another person to do me for during the production, and then they were going to bring me in for one day because they didn't want to pay me, for any more than they had to. So. Basically, a massive multi-billion-dollar company is going out of its way to underpay its employees and devalue voice acting unions. But more importantly, our Transformers cartoons sound slightly worse now. I'm being sarcastic, the union thinks way worse. The Transformers franchise had to resume casting from scratch. Some shows, such as Cyberverse, opted to reinvent these characters, allowing the actors to give wholly original performances. But some, such as War for Cybertron, leaned towards impressions of the characters' G1 predecessors. Non-union seems to be the future of the brand,
And two non-union actors who fell into Hasbro's embrace are John Bailey and Jake Fushi. Back in 2012, John Bailey landed the role of Screen Junkie's Honest Trailers narrator, and often expressed his love for the Transformers franchise while impersonating Prime's voice.
My name is Optimus Prime, and I send this message to all of humanity. Please subscribe.
I thought he sounded fantastic, and I saw a future for him in the franchise, as did most people. Likewise, teenager Jake Fushi got a massive following from his voice impressions on Vine and on YouTube.
And so today, on Fushi Friday, I'm going to be doing some voice impressions for you.
I am Optimus Prime. Autobots, assemble. We must find the sacred screwdriver.
I remember seeing his videos and thinking he sounded great. And not too long after, both of these men got their chance to enter the Transformers franchise, and something didn't click. John Bailey voiced Optimus Prime in Transformers Combiner Wars. While he got the cadence and the voice correct, the acting and performance aspect seemed surprisingly wooden.
Stop. You are off balance. Windblade, you are a long way from Caminus. I have been tracking you since you arrived here on.
He wasn't emoting, he was imitating Peter Cullen's emoting. Something which Peter Cullen has even commented on, as John Bailey was also the source of the aforementioned Bumblebee temp dialogue.
I had to impersonate him, impersonating me, and his timing was wrong, and his inflections were wrong. He didn't know how to drag a vowel, or he didn't know how to make Prime sincere, so he'd skip over the things that did, and I went, wow, this is horrible.
I sincerely hope that John Bailey has never seen this recording, because that would be heartbreaking. I would be sobbing. And this isn't a statement of John Bailey's talent at all. It's simply because he isn't Peter Cullen. And not too long after, Jake Fushi landed the role of Optimus Prime in Transformers Cyberverse. He was only 21 years old when the series aired, and he was already voicing his childhood hero in an official Hasbro production. This is a massive accomplishment, and it can't be understated. But, much like John Bailey, the impression didn't hold up when it was coupled with a performance. Expressing Prime's guilt regarding the decay of Cybertron wasn't the same as jokingly talking about screwdrivers.
I never should have sent the Allspark away from Cybertron. I felt there was no choice. But I was wrong.
It was an impression of Peter Cullen's performance rather than a performance. And to say that it didn't click isn't a measure of Jake Fushi's talent or ability. It's simply saying that Jake Fushi isn't Peter Cullen. And now, Jake Fushi has returned to voice Optimus Prime in Netflix's War for Cybertron trilogy. Which got me thinking. There's a tricky line between vocal impressions and a true performance. For example, I create Transformers fan projects in which I voice a handful of characters. Often, when recording dialogue, I'll record it well, but then upon re-listening to it, think, oh man, I slipped out of the Shockwave voice. I've got to re-record that and hold to that voice better. But focusing on doing the voice correctly will in turn limit my range. I'll be the first to admit that my Transformers Animated Season 4 is simply full of bad impressions and not authentic performances. Because I'm specifically making a continuation of Transformers Animated, I have to match those voices the best I can. Blitzwing can't start speaking with a Cockney accent because I perform it better. It has to connect to the source material. A Cockney accent was just an example, by the way. I don't know what that is. Now that raises a point. Transformers War for Cybertron isn't set in any pre-existing continuity. Technically, Optimus doesn't have to retain his Peter Cullen voice likeness. An option on the table is reinventing the character. Here's what I mean. The beauty of the Transformers brand is that it reboots itself every couple of years. There are always multiple continuities running concurrently. This gives the writers and directors complete creative freedom to change the lore and give new takes on characters. Cyberverse, for example, had the right to give Grimlock a Bruce Banner dynamic between his beast mode and his robot mode. It's fantastic because reinterpretations like this keep the characters fresh, and if you don't prefer it, then you can rest assured that Grimlock is going to be right back to normal in the next continuity within a year or so. There are good and bad ways to go about reinvention. A bad example I think of is Wheeljack from Transformers Prime. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoy this version of the character every time he's on screen. A bad reinvention does not equate to a bad character. This is a bad reinvention because, outside of appearance, what does he have in common with his G1 incarnation? G1 Wheeljack is a quirky inventor who's endlessly optimistic and creative. TFP Wheeljack is a gruff and closed-off wrecker warrior. Again, I like the character, but he's not Wheeljack because he possesses none of the character. Oh my god, look at the little waddle he does. look at the little shuffle. Because he possesses none of the character's true core values. He only has the same paint job. Oh, what? They show him working on his ship here. He works on a ship, and that's a reference to his G1 inventor status. I have a lot of mechanics as family friends, and let me tell you, none of them are Professor Egad. Although I bet they wish they were. Look at him. Look at his face. Look in his eyes. Who wouldn't want to be Professor Egad? A positive example of character reinvention hails from a Transformers show that I rarely talk about on this channel. Transformers Animated from 2007, with its take on Optimus Prime. The core characteristics of Optimus are as follows. A noble leader who often lets his doubts get in the way of achieving his true potential. Endlessly caring, but stern if he has to be. He'll protect the humans with his life, even if he's a bit confused by them sometimes. And now, here comes TFA Optimus. A noble leader who lets his doubts get in the way of achieving his true potential. Endlessly caring, but stern if he has to be. He'll protect the humans with his life, even if he's a bit confused by them sometimes. Every single core characteristic of Optimus Prime has been carried over to this new version. And yet this is still such a radically different take. Different voice, different appearance, and different vibes altogether. When you think of Optimus Prime, this is most likely not what comes to your head, despite the fact that this is a loyal and true take on him. And that's how you reinvent a character. The issue is that, unlike most Transformers, Peter Cullen's voice and likeness are specifically integral to Optimus Prime for a lot of people. A TFA Prime every once in a while is fine, but if Optimus gets reinvented every year, people will stop seeing them as Prime. So what do? Optimus Prime is the cut and dry protagonist of Earthrise, one of the few characters in the show. That meaning Optimus, Megatron, Bumblebee, Elita 1, and Skylynx are characters. Jetfire, Scorponok, Shockwave, Starscream have personalities, and no one else said or did anything. Oh, Cog died? Who was Cog? There are some scenes in Earthrise which genuinely contain some of the best on-screen Optimus Prime dialogue in the franchise's history.
You keep cheating death and leaving me to suffer the consequences.
I want you to imagine, for example, if Peter Cullen were voicing Prime in this scene.
I was wrong. I should not have sent the Allspark into the space bridge, no matter what.
Now oh my god, what is happening here? Did I just walk in on something? Does Elita know about this? So you're telling me not a single person at Netflix said, hold on guys. Now I want you to think about the sequence with Prime and Skylynx. Amazing reinvention of Skylynx while we're at it. This entire episode is just talking, and it's wonderful. I don't know what was happening in that Galvatron B-plot, but Optimus Prime in this scene just comes off as very stilted and wooden due to the delivery, and that's not what we should have felt in a soul-searching journey here. Since when can the Matrix shoot a hole into unspace? This thing just has knowledge in it. In addition, there are several instances in Earthrise where Optimus yells, and it feels artificial. It sounds like he's speaking in a weird accent.
No! Bumblebee! Get everyone to
Yelling in this voice clearly isn't in Jake Fushi's range, and once again, I can't reiterate this enough. It's not a matter of Fushi's talent or ability. You really can't control the range you're born with. The show is held back not by Jake Fushi's performance, but simply by the absence of Peter Cullen. John Bailey has just as many limitations, and so does any other Optimus voice you've heard in any other fan project you've ever seen. I truly respect these men and what they're doing. I'd probably cry if either of them watched this video and just heard themselves getting ragged on for several minutes, because this corporate Hasbro product is still made by individual creators with feelings at the end of the day. They love this character and his legacy, and they're trying their best. The issue is that they're trying their best to do something that's simply impossible. Impossible for them, impossible for anyone. And we, the fandom, should spend less time blaming them in our conversations, but blaming the studio that's forcibly putting them in this position. Yes, someday, not too long from now, the permanent replacement of Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime will become an inevitability. But for now, we have a man who loves this character, who is positively pining to return to this franchise and voice the leader that he created.
And they literally are, they're destroying the Union from from outside. It's subterfuge. It's just, it's wrong. It's wrong. But that's what's going to happen with this series. There'll be somebody else doing Optimus Prime, and that hurts. That hurts.
Although the question of impressions versus recreation is a bit tricky, and there's no easy solution to Optimus Prime's on-screen future, I think the one thing we can all agree on is that Hasbro has to stop shutting Optimus Prime's original voice actor out of the proceedings. They wouldn't be doing it for us. Hasbro doesn't owe us anything, but in my opinion, they owe it to him. So, what are your thoughts? Do you think that impressions are preferable, or should Hasbro attempt to reinvent the character of Optimus going forward? Let me know in the comments section. I was going to end this video by saying, till all are one, but that's cliche, so till all are two. How about that? Till all are two. If you liked this video, consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. If you didn't like the video, consider disliking it and assassinating someone who has subscribed. This is a joke, do not do that. My goal is to reach 10,000 subscribers around June or June-ish, and you could be an essential part of that. If you enjoy the channel, please consider following me on Instagram and Twitter, because my entire self-worth is determined by my follower count. In addition, I'd like to thank my Patreon supporters, Carly Gay, Chris Galucci, Adam Nicholson, Ish, Ali Elrai, Chris P3, and Danny Can. They've already seen this video by now because I release videos a week early on Patreon. Not gonna lie, saying all of that shill stuff absolutely killed me. Just know that no matter how weird, confusing, and scary the world can get, remember that you are loved, you are needed, and you are valuable. Don't forget that. What if Peter Cullen's secretly an asshole or something, and that's why they stopped inviting him back? They just got rid of Union voice actors entirely, solely as an excuse to avoid Peter Cullen? Like, how crazy would that be? I mean, we technically don't know for sure he isn't one, right? More like Peter Colonoscopy.
What in the celestial spires is that?